Hello and welcome to the second tutorial as part of our Universally Good Photorealistic Portrait series. This is the tutorial where I will be showing you how to set up your image references and bring those references into ZBRUSH, and then we're going to start sculpting. So let's dive right in. So here's where we left off in ZBRUSH. This is the base mesh that I'm going to be working with, and right now I just want to bring in some of my reference images that we worked on previously. I'm not going to bring in the ones with the sketches, but I will frequently refer back to this one for just some guidance about what I marked and what I noticed in the previous lesson. But for now, I just want to bring in some plain images like these in order to have them on my screen while I'm sculpting. So the way that I do that is I am going to take a snip of my entire working area right here. Actually, before I do that, I'm going to zoom in a bit first because this is probably the distance that I'm going to be working at when I'm sculpting. I like to get up really close to the face. So I'll just take a snip of this, of the whole canvas, and I'm going to copy that, go ahead and close that, and then hop into Photoshop. And then if I hit make a new document, my clipboard is all there. It's already the right size of the document, and I will just paste that in. And then I will grab some of these images, duplicate them over to that new document, Untitled 3, and I'm just going to start positioning them. So these are really large images. Let me hide these other ones. And I'm kind of going to like put the images that I think are the best around the face. So that one can go there, and I might even go through and erase parts of it that I don't really need to see. Gonna pull up another one. Put that one over there. And I really want his face to be the biggest part. And I'll just lasso a bit off. And delete that. This one's really important to have up because it shows him from the side. And we really need to have a good side view of the face. I'm going to go back to this first one and just do a cleaner lasso. There we go. Let's see if I can fit this one. It'd be nice to have one that's completely front facing as well. In fact, I might choose to put this one there instead of... I do like both of these. Let's see if we can... Yeah, I'll just put him here in the corner for this view. I'm going to turn that off. Okay, now I'm going to hide the background, and so that I just get a completely transparent image. Okay, so now I will just go ahead and I will save this as a PNG called Trebek onscreen reference.png, and I'll just replace that file. And then now we're ready to hop into ZBrush. I want to bring that reference in to Spotlight in order to have it around the face at all times. So I'm going to go to Texture, and I will import that PNG that we had made. And there it is. So I'll click on it, and now you just want to press Add to Spotlight, that button right there, and there we go. So I'll scale it up a little bit and just position it a little bit better around. I don't really want to cover this entire window, so maybe I'll just slide it down a little bit. As long as we can see all the faces for reference, we should be fine. And then if I press Z, now that takes me out of that Spotlight menu. Shift Z is what hides it, and Shift Z will bring it back on, and then just pressing Z will open up the Spotlight tool again for positioning. So I just want to go ahead and turn up the opacity all the way so that it's not transparent. And then there's one last thing that we have to do before we can start sculpting, which is to go to the brush menu and under samples here, turn off spotlight projection so that it's not looking for a place where there is these spotlight images for sculpting. So these are just going to be reference images. We don't need spotlight projection for that. Okay, wrong brush. Alrighty, so now we are ready to start sculpting. Sorry, that keeps popping up because I have the wrong brush selected. So here's my base mesh, and the first thing that I'm going to be looking at is the overall head shape. That's what we're going to be starting with. So I can already see that his head is too small right here, and I'm just going to go into my move brush. Let's see, move topological brush, and turn on symmetry by pressing X so that we can work just on one side. And I'm just going to start pulling his head into more of this shape where he's got, like we talked about previously, he's got kind of more of a rectangular head. And I'm going to be continuing to orbit around and continuing to look at areas that we marked previously, the slope of his head. Bring that out. Bring the eyes back. Bring the cheekbone up. I'm probably going to keep intersecting a lot through these eyes, but I'll fix that later. Bring that down. Let me actually go ahead and mask off these eyelids when they're in a good position, because I don't want to move them too much. Let's see, I want my mask lasso. I'll just mask off the eyelids. Let me also change to a different matte cap material. I don't really like the wax look. I'll probably use just a basic material for now. Oh, the other one was better. It's got a little too much shadow for me, so let me just go through and look at some of these other options. White cavity. That one seems good. We're not getting too much shadows and I can still see the shape. Yeah, so just going through, moving his brow down a little bit, checking out the bridge of the nose. Here he comes, it's sitting a little bit more further down. His nose kind of comes out a little bit more. Bring his head up. I'm just kind of going through and observing what I think to be where his neck and meets the ear to the back of the head, making sure it looks, his ear kind of comes down a little bit more. This one has kind of a super weird jawline, the space mesh, so we can adjust. So that forehead is coming out a little bit more and it's a little bit flatter. Just want to take down my smooth intensity a little bit. I'm just looking and I'm comparing it to what I'm seeing here and here. And these need to come down a lot more. These are really hiding his eyelids. In fact, I'll go through with the inflate brush and just pump that up a lot. Also, I'm noticing right here, too, it comes down. Whoops. Move topological. Smooth that a little bit. I might reduce my mask. That comes way down like that. Move down. You can see here in this mesh there's some hint of where the crow's feet will go. So I'll just go and move those kind of down into place. And then let's work now on, okay, so this is corner of his brow needs to come just more tightened here. I'll go through with the pinch brush. I just want to pinch that up a little bit more so it's a little sharper, because it is pretty, he does have a pretty sharp brow right there. Move that down. I also sort of want to notice just my overall proportions too, so that I don't get too off track. And what can be helpful with that is if I just go ahead and mask off where his hairline would fall, kind of like that, to see, okay, is his forehead actually hitting the right spot, which he's got kind of a weird bulge there, but if I bring that up. So I'm looking at this part of his forehead where it's nice and flat. I'm going to flatten that a little bit. Kind of like that. Still not loving the overall shape of the top here. Just want to bring that out. And when we put hair on him, this will get covered too. So we can also help define more of the overall shape of his head with his hair, obviously, but we need a place to start. Okay, now I'll go through and I'll move on to the lower half of his face. I'm looking at the shape of, if I pop back into Photoshop with my drawovers, the swooping bottom of his face. Rectangular on top and then more oval on the bottom is the shape that I'm going for here. Bring everything down a little bit. I'll make him smile later. This is just to try to get the the shape right. His mouth and his lips are not that big. Not that big at all, so I'm going to bring those up. Bring those down. Smooth it a little bit. But he does have a big chin. Bring those cheeks down. He's got big cheeks. Nice big soft cheeks. And then the ear is pretty narrow. Pretty narrow and long. And I'm not subdividing this yet. I like the topology. I don't think I need to subdivide it just yet. So these ears are looking a little bit closer to how they are in this view. Although he has a really thin area right here, like the outer fold of the ear is pretty skinny. So I'm just going to go and smooth that down. And we're going to go through and detail all of this later. This is just about trying to get the overall shape. The nose needs to come down more. Not too much. Maybe a little bit wider at the bridge. Maybe a little wider in general. And this comes down a little bit. Just going to go through with my clay brush and start to add some more volume to the cheeks because he's looking really flat right here. Smooth it down. And so I'm noticing here that this profile of his silhouette right here, it's not looking completely correct, because I think this is coming, this needs to be pulled back a little bit and pushed in. I don't want to mess up the eyelids too much from where they sit on the eyes, but that'll all, we'll go into detail with the eyes later. This is more about starting to get the overall shape and the overall resemblance going. This down. I'm going to add more into his neck. With the clay brush. Some more volume. And now I think I'll go through a little bit with the Damien Standard brush. And just kind of start to mark out, okay, so here where some of the major lines are. This line though is connecting, not really where it should. It goes over the nose, not up next to it. So I'm just gonna move it a little bit up. Also noticing that his mouth is too high. He's got more distance between his nose and his mouth than we have here. Keep the nose where it should be. Just pull the mouth down a little bit. I'll go through and move the cheek out more. Smooth it. Maybe push it forward. So he's, from the profile, he has a nice kind of like slope right here, and then I'm trying to get that slope to match this line to this line. And then this jowl area comes down right here. So I'll just go through and add a little bit more volume to that area. Not so much. That was too much. Smooth it down. Starting to lose a little bit of the mouth shape. Whoops. Just, his eyes are looking a little too high up. They need to come down a little bit. I'm looking at where the corner of his eye is in comparison to his ear, and it's much further down. It's like in the middle of his ear, where that crow's feet hits. See? So maybe we move his ears up a little bit, his eyes down, and then I'll just grab the eyes here that are in a separate subtool and go to Unmasked Mesh Center, and then just pull them down a little bit. It's not really starting to look like him yet, but we'll get there. We'll keep getting there. It's a process. It's not easy. I'm looking at the distance between his eyes, and I kind of feel that these eyes are a little bit too small, but we'll make it work. I don't really want to make them bigger yet because I feel like that might lead to more of a cartoony trap to fall into. His nose a little bit more narrow. Okay, so now I'll subdivide it once. So we have a little bit more room to play with when we're going through and marking with the Damn Standard brush. I'll just start marking these lines with a pretty high intensity and a pretty small brush where these lines live. So I think his mouth is a little too wide. So let's go in with the move brush and just take that down a little bit. His lips are definitely not that big, so bring them up. And then back to detailing this fold right here. And these are just going to be our landmarks for the face. I know it looks a little weird right now, but we will just make the landmarks and then we'll start moving them around. Turn that up a little bit more. So there's definitely a lot of excess volume in here that we need to get rid of. It's like looking too full. His eyes also don't have as much of a lower lid as these ones have. So I'm going to move the lower lid back a little bit. And if I mask it off, I can just move the cheek out a little bit. And I'm going to smooth it. Put in some of these forehead lines. Just rough right now. This is just to give us some landmarks. Put in some crow's feet. This part of the head is looking real weird. It should not be bulging out that much. And also, now the slope of his nose to his chin isn't correct. His nose doesn't go out that far. Push that in, pull. I'm going to go in with a bigger move, and I'm going to mask the eyes a little bit. Just feather them. And then I'm going to do an overall adjustment to the slope and the angle of his face. Where that comes out. Just how that lower portion of his face falls from the top of his skull. So we have the circle of the skull right here, and then the rest of the face sort of hangs off of it a little bit. I know that seems a little bit of a weird thing to say, but that's kind of what it feels like for me. Bring that head down a little bit more right there. Okay, we're getting there. He's looking really sad. Make him look a little angrier. But I don't want to do too much in terms of expressions yet. I just kind of want to go for a neutral face. And we can look at like and try to think like, okay, why is he looking sad? Are his brows too low? And I think it just needs to be flattened out a little bit more. And this is also protruding a little too much. I'm going to go in with the damp standard brush again and add a line here. Whoops, that's way too intense. For where this show you in Photoshop for where this line happens, boop, boop, where that kind of breaks up like that. And then I want to go through with my pinch brush too, and I'll just pinch up the sides of the forehead. That kind of gives it more of a realistic shape. And I'll do the top of the hairline too, so that we can kind of start to see with the pinch brush where that will live. Smooth it a little bit. I also need to work on the temples into the cheekbone. Pull it back a little. Mask off the face and blur it. Then I'll invert that and just kind of pull the face back. And then I'll move his eyes back into place. Again, I'm looking at this image and trying to get just that outer line to look more proportional. That lip needs to come back. This outer line can come out a little bit more right here in the cheek. And let's put in that divot that we noticed in the last video too. Right here. Just a little bit. Just to give it a little bit of that shading. Like right in here. All right, we're off to a start. I think I'll pause the video here, and I will catch you guys in the next one. Thanks for watching.